The vast interstellar station hummed with the energy of countless alien species, each representing a unique corner of the galaxy. Luminescent panels bathed the central hall in a soft glow, reflecting off chitinous shells, metallic skin, and feathery appendages. Conversations in 100 languages blended into an almost musical hum, a testament to the peace the station symbolized. The galactic Peacekeepers, an interspecies coalition, prided themselves on being the architects of this tenuous harmony. They had convened this summit to demonstrate the power of understanding and nonviolence in maintaining order among the stars. The Peacekeepers were not a military force but a council of wisdom and strategy. They sought to mediate disputes, relying on symbolic gestures and carefully curated traditions to defuse tensions. Among these traditions was the ritual of the Duel of Harmony, a non-lethal competition intended to resolve conflicts and demonstrate the value of restraint and adaptability. The duels were carefully calibrated to avoid physical harm, focusing instead on speed, reflexes, and wit. They were less about dominance and more about mutual respect. Among the assembly of peacekeepers stood a figure that drew no small amount of attention. A human, known in galactic parlance as a Deathworlder, was a rare sight at such events. Humans were a young species, hailing from a world classified as a death world, a planet so hostile that survival alone required exceptional adaptability. To most alien species, humans represented a paradox. Their evolutionary history suggested unparalleled aggression and resilience, yet their representatives often exuded an almost disarming charm and politeness. The human envoy, a man named Commander Elias Rain, had been sent to represent Earth in the summit. Clad in a simple, understated uniform, he stood with an air of quiet confidence. His presence was met with cautious glances and whispered conversations. The Peacekeepers had extended the invitation to humanity more out of curiosity than trust. There were countless stories, many exaggerated, about the feats of Deathworlders, stories of their unyielding will, uncanny reflexes, and ability to turn seemingly impossible odds in their favor. Today, those stories would face a test. The announcement came with a ceremonial flourish. The Peacekeepers, as part of the day's proceedings, proposed a friendly duel to exemplify their principles of non-lethal resolution. The duel would pit a representative of one species against another, chosen by mutual agreement. The challenge was designed to showcase skill without violence, emphasizing agility and strategic thinking. When the Peacekeepers suggested that humanity participate, the room grew palpably tense. Many suspected the invitation was a veiled attempt to gauge the truth of the Deathworlder myths. Commander Rain, however, accepted without hesitation. His calm demeanor unsettled some of the observers, who expected at least a hint of nervousness. The opposing side quickly nominated their champion, a towering member of the Draxian species. The Draxians were known for their speed and precision, their reptilian frames built for explosive bursts of movement. Their champion, Xral, was a seasoned duelist, having won numerous competitions in his home sector. To him, the human appeared unremarkable, even fragile. His inner skepticism mirrored the murmurings of the audience. The duel was framed not as a contest of superiority, but as an exchange of skills, a symbolic effort to bridge cultural divides. Yet, under the surface, it carried a different weight. For the aliens in attendance, it was an opportunity to see if the Deathworlder reputation was deserved, or merely overblown mythos propagated by galactic rumor. As preparations began, the focus shifted to the arena, a circular platform surrounded by a transparent barrier. It was a neutral environment, stripped of any advantage one species might gain from gravity, temperature, or terrain. The rules were simple. Each participant would attempt to outmaneuver the other, scoring points through agility and tactics without landing harmful blows. The first to reach a set score would be declared the winner. Rain stepped into the arena, his posture relaxed yet purposeful. His movements, though subtle, hinted at a deep-rooted awareness of his surroundings. The audience watched intently, their skepticism mingled with curiosity. Across from him, Xral exuded an aura of practiced confidence, his sinewy form coiled like a spring ready to release. The contrast between the two competitors couldn't have been more stark, one a towering predator, the other an unassuming figure from a species still considered a galactic newcomer. As the signal to begin loomed, Rain took a moment to scan the crowd. His gaze was calm but sharp, his expression unreadable. There was no grandstanding, no display of bravado. His composure was unsettling in its simplicity. Xral, meanwhile, flexed his claws and adjusted his stance, his body language practically oozing superiority. When the duel was announced, few expected it to be anything more than a polite demonstration. The Draxian champion was widely favored to win, his species' reputation for speed and agility making him a formidable opponent. For many in the audience, the human was already as good as defeated. They anticipated a brief, one-sided affair, a moment of polite humiliation for the Deathworlder representative. The duel was about to begin, and anticipation hung heavy in the air. Despite the structured and ceremonial nature of the event, an undercurrent of tension ran through the crowd. This wasn't just a friendly competition. It was a glimpse into the unknown, a chance to test the limits of a Deathworlder. The aliens watched closely, their collective curiosity sharpened by the unshakable question, what exactly was humanity capable of? The arena's ambient hum seemed to intensify as the duel commenced. Xral moved first, his reptilian frame a blur of motion. His movements were sharp, precise, calculated. The audience barely registered his initial strike, expecting the human to falter. Yet, to their astonishment, Rain sidestepped effortlessly, his reaction time almost uncanny. No wasted energy, no hesitation, just a clean, fluid evasion that left Xral momentarily off balance. The alien's claws sliced through empty air, his momentum carrying him forward as Rain calmly pivoted to maintain an optimal position. Xral regrouped quickly, clearly underestimating his opponent. He adopted a more cautious approach, circling Rain, his golden eyes narrowing as he assessed the human's movements. Meanwhile, Rain remained still, his posture relaxed yet focused. He made no attempt to strike, his patience unnerving both Xral and the spectators. It was clear that Rain was studying his opponent, analyzing patterns and waiting for the right moment to act. This unnerved the Draxian champion, who was used to overwhelming his opponents with speed and aggression. The crowd began to murmur as the initial exchange unfolded. It was not what they had anticipated. They expected Xral to dominate with his species' renowned physical superiority. Instead, they were witnessing an unexpected level of control and composure from the human. Rain's movements weren't just quick, they were precise, almost as if he could predict Xral's intentions before the alien acted. This level of anticipation wasn't merely a result of training, it was instinct honed through millennia of survival in an environment as unforgiving as Earth. Xral, now fully aware that brute speed wouldn't be enough, adjusted his strategy. He began employing feints and misdirections, attempting to draw Rain into a vulnerable position. He launched a flurry of attacks, each more unpredictable than the last. To the untrained eye, it was chaos, blindingly fast strikes coming from every angle. But Rain moved with a fluidity that defied logic, dodging each attack with millimeter precision. His movements weren't showy or overly complex. They were efficient, born of an evolutionary need to conserve energy and survive in hostile conditions. The spectators were transfixed. Many of them had initially dismissed Rain as a token participant, a representative chosen more for diplomacy than combat prowess. Yet here he was, holding his own against one of the most formidable species in the galaxy. The implications were unsettling. If this was the capability of a single human, what did it say about their species as a whole? Xral, despite his mounting frustration, was far from defeated. He shifted tactics once more, opting for a slower, more deliberate approach. His movements became less aggressive and more calculated, probing for weaknesses in Rain's defense. This was a strategy honed over years of dueling, one that had proven effective against countless opponents. But Rain, unfazed, continued to evade and counter with minimal effort. It wasn't just his speed that was remarkable, it was his adaptability. He seemed to learn from each attack, refining his responses in real time. The crowd, initially biased in favor of Xral, began to shift their perception. Whispers of disbelief spread among the spectators as they watched the human not only match but occasionally outmaneuver the Draxian champion. The duel was no longer a foregone conclusion. For the first time, many of the aliens present began to consider the possibility of Rain winning. Xral's frustration was evident. His strikes grew more forceful, his movements less disciplined. The precision that had defined his earlier attacks began to waver as his emotions got the better of him. Rain, in contrast, remained a picture of calm. He capitalized on Xral's growing impatience, using subtle shifts in positioning to force the alien into overextending. Each time Xral lunged, Rain was already moving, creating openings that he could exploit if the rules allowed for more aggressive tactics. As the duel progressed, the psychological aspect became increasingly apparent. Xral, despite his physical advantages, was being outmaneuvered mentally. Rain's composure, combined with his uncanny ability to read his opponent, was turning the tide. The human was no longer just reacting, he was controlling the flow of the duel, dictating the pace and forcing Xral into a reactive role. The spectators, many of whom had been skeptical of humanity's reputation, began to view Rain in a new light. His performance wasn't just a testament to his individual skill, it was a reflection of humanity's broader potential. Their adaptability, their ability to thrive in hostile conditions, and their knack for turning weaknesses into strengths were on full display. Xral, recognizing that his usual tactics were failing, prepared to unleash a final gambit. This was a move he had rarely used, one that relied on overwhelming speed and power to corner his opponent. The crowd held their breath as Xral coiled his body, every muscle primed for an explosive attack. This was the moment they had been waiting for, a demonstration of the raw physicality that had made the Draxians such feared combatants. But as Xral launched himself forward, his form a blur of motion, Rain moved in a way that defied all expectations. It wasn't just speed, it was timing, precision, and an almost preternatural awareness of his surroundings. The human sidestepped the attack with a grace that left the audience in stunned silence. Xral's momentum carried him past his target, leaving him momentarily vulnerable. Rain didn't exploit the opening, adhering to the rules of the duel, but the message was clear. He had outmaneuvered one of the galaxy's most skilled warriors with a move that seemed almost effortless. The crowd erupted into a mix of gasps and murmurs. For the first time, they fully grasped what it meant to face a Deathworlder. It wasn't just physical prowess or speed, it was the ability to adapt, to learn, and to overcome challenges that seemed insurmountable. Rain's performance was more than a personal victory, it was a statement about humanity's place in the galaxy. Xral's breathing grew heavier as the duel continued, his frustration mounting with each passing moment. His pride as a Draxian champion was being tested in ways he hadn't anticipated. Every move he made, every tactic he tried, was met with an almost casual response from Rain. The human wasn't just matching him, he was dismantling Xral's strategies without ever breaking a sweat. It was infuriating, and worse, it was humiliating. The audience's whispers of surprise and disbelief only deepened the wound to Xral's ego. Determined to regain control, Xral decided to abandon the restraint he had maintained for the sake of decorum. He shifted his stance, his claws extending fully, and his muscles coiled for an all-out offensive. The plan was simple: overwhelm the human with a relentless assault, leaving no room for counterattacks or evasion. Xral's species thrived on sheer physical dominance, and he intended to remind the audience of that fact. The burst of speed Xral unleashed was extraordinary, even by Draxian standards. He surged forward, his claws flashing in rapid, coordinated strikes designed to corner Rain and force him into a mistake. For a moment, the audience thought the human might finally falter under the relentless pressure. But Rain, instead of retreating, stepped into the attack, his movements impossibly precise. He didn't just evade, he redirected Xral's momentum with minimal effort, using small, almost imperceptible shifts in position to neutralize the assault. It was in this exchange that the stark difference between the two became undeniable. Xral fought with the raw, instinctual ferocity of a predator, relying on strength and speed to dominate his opponent. Rain, on the other hand, moved like a craftsman, each motion deliberate and calculated. It wasn't just a clash of physical abilities, it was a battle of philosophies. One valued brute force, the other precision and control. Xral's final gambit came in the form of a technique his species rarely used outside of life-or-death combat. It was a maneuver requiring immense physical strain, combining speed and agility to deliver an attack so rapid and overwhelming that even seasoned opponents couldn't counter it. He launched himself at Rain in a spiraling arc, his claws aimed directly for the space the human occupied. The audience collectively held their breath, certain this was the moment the human would be outmatched. Rain's reaction was instantaneous. In the split second before Xral's attack landed, he moved, not away from the assault, but directly into its path. To the untrained eye, it seemed suicidal, but what happened next left the audience in stunned silence. With a motion so quick it was barely perceptible, Rain twisted his body and deflected the strike with his forearm, using Xral's momentum against him. The Draxian was sent off balance, his trajectory altered just enough to miss his target completely. The impact of the maneuver was profound, not just on Xral but on the spectators. The sheer audacity of stepping into such a dangerous attack and turning it into an opportunity was beyond anything they had ever seen. Rain's calm, almost effortless execution was a stark contrast to the frantic energy of Xral's movements. It was clear now to everyone watching, the human wasn't just surviving this duel, he was in control of it. Xral, for all his skill and experience, realized he had nothing left. His attacks had failed, his stamina was waning, and his confidence was shattered. The realization was bitter, but it was undeniable. He had been bested, not by brute strength or superior speed, but by a level of adaptability and precision that he simply couldn't match. With a heavy breath, he stepped back, signaling his concession. The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. The spectacle they had just witnessed defied everything they believed about combat, about humans, and about Deathworlders. The Peacekeeper delegation, who had invited humanity to the summit more as an experiment than a genuine gesture of inclusion, exchanged uneasy glances. What they had hoped would be a demonstration of humanity's limitations had become a stark reminder of why their kind was both feared and respected. Rain, ever composed, extended a hand to Xral, helping the defeated champion to his feet. The gesture, simple yet profound, carried a weight that words could not. It wasn't a gloating display of victory, nor was it a condescending show of pity. It was a moment of respect between two competitors. The audience, still grappling with what they had seen, erupted into a mix of applause and murmured conversations. As the duel officially ended, the Peacekeepers began to assess the implications. Rain's performance was more than a personal triumph, it was a revelation. Humanity, a species they had viewed with equal parts curiosity and suspicion, had demonstrated a capability that went beyond physical prowess. They had shown intelligence, adaptability, and restraint. These were qualities that could make them invaluable allies, or dangerous adversaries. Xral, though defeated, approached Rain after the match. His pride was wounded, but his respect for the human was evident. "You are more than they say," he admitted, his voice low but steady. Rain offered a faint smile in response, either confirming nor denying the statement. The interaction was brief, but it spoke volumes. Xral, once dismissive of humanity, had been forced to reevaluate his assumptions. The impact of the duel rippled through the audience. Species that had previously viewed humans as primitive or overly aggressive began to reconsider. The stories of Deathworlders, often dismissed as exaggerations, now seemed grounded in undeniable truth. Rain's performance wasn't just a victory, it was a message. Humanity was more than capable of standing among the galaxy's greatest species, not because of their strength but because of their adaptability, intelligence, and unshakable resolve. As Rain exited the arena, the atmosphere had shifted. The whispers of doubt and skepticism were gone, replaced by a mix of admiration and caution. Humanity's place in the galaxy had changed in that moment. For the Peacekeepers, it was a reminder that the universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of surprises. And for those who had witnessed the duel, one thing was certain: they would never underestimate a Deathworlder again. The crowd dispersed slowly, the weight of the duel's outcome lingering in the air. Conversations were hushed at first, as if the audience was reluctant to speak too soon about what they had just witnessed. Many of the delegates, representing species long accustomed to viewing humans with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, now found themselves re-evaluating their understanding. The duel had not just showcased physical prowess but revealed a depth of strategy and adaptability that many hadn't expected from humanity. Among the Peacekeeper Council, the discussion turned serious. The display they had orchestrated, meant to demonstrate humanity's place within the galactic order, had backfired in unexpected ways. The human had not just participated, he had dominated with such composure that it left no room for doubt about the species' capabilities. While the duel had been framed as a friendly competition, it carried implications that reached far beyond the arena. The council members recognized that they needed to reconsider their stance on humanity, both as allies and as potential threats. Some argued for caution. Humanity's ability to adapt, combined with their evolutionary history on a death world, marked them as unpredictable. They were not bound by the same rigid patterns of behavior that defined other species. Their unpredictability, while a strength, also made them difficult to integrate into the structured framework the Peacekeepers sought to maintain. Others countered that this adaptability was exactly what made humanity valuable. A species capable of thriving under extreme conditions and thinking beyond conventional limitations could bring fresh perspectives and solutions to the Council's long-standing challenges. Meanwhile, Rain found himself the subject of quiet admiration and curiosity among those who had witnessed the duel. Delegates from other species approached him with questions, their earlier wariness replaced by genuine interest. They asked about Earth, about the training that had prepared him for such a performance, and about humanity's perspective on interstellar diplomacy. Rain, ever composed, answered with a mix of humility and pragmatism, carefully choosing words that emphasized cooperation over competition. He understood the significance of the moment. His actions had not just represented himself but an entire species now being scrutinized under a new lens. Xral, though defeated, did not shy away from acknowledging the outcome. He sought Rain out privately, their interaction brief but meaningful. For the Draxian, admitting defeat was not an easy task, but he expressed a grudging respect for the human's skill. The exchange carried no hostility, only a quiet understanding between two warriors who had tested each other's limits. For Xral, the duel had been a humbling reminder that strength alone was not enough. For Rain, it was an affirmation of humanity's place in the galaxy, earned not through force but through ingenuity and resilience. The Peacekeeper Council reconvened the following day to discuss the broader implications of the duel. Reports from the delegates highlighted a common theme: humanity's adaptability and potential could no longer be dismissed. Many species were intrigued, some even inspired, but there was also a note of unease. The duel had been a controlled environment, yet the human had displayed capabilities that hinted at a far greater depth. What might happen in a situation without such constraints? The council debated the next steps. Some proposed integrating humans more fully into peacekeeper operations, leveraging their unique skills to address conflicts and challenges where adaptability was paramount. Others suggested a more cautious approach, arguing for increased observation and study of humanity before making any commitments. The duel had answered some questions but raised many more, particularly about the long-term implications of humanity's inclusion in intergalactic affairs. For Rain, the aftermath was a mixture of satisfaction and awareness. He had achieved what he had set out to do: demonstrate humanity's capability without resorting to aggression or dominance. Yet he also understood the dual-edged nature of the impression he had left. While many would see humanity as a potential ally, others might view them as a threat to be contained. It was a delicate balance, one that Rain knew would require careful navigation in the coming years. Among the alien delegates, the stories of the duel began to spread, taking on a life of their own. Each retelling added layers of admiration, disbelief, and in some cases, exaggeration. For some species, the duel became a symbol of humanity's potential to rise above its death world origins and contribute meaningfully to the galaxy. For others, it was a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in a controlled environment, humans could achieve the unexpected. As the summit concluded, the Peacekeeper Council issued a formal statement acknowledging the duel's outcome and emphasizing the importance of cooperation among all species. Humanity's representative was commended for his conduct, though the statement carefully avoided language that might imply superiority. The message was clear: the Peacekeepers recognize humanity's potential but were not yet ready to fully embrace it without further understanding. Back on Earth, news of the duel began to filter through official channels. For humanity, it was a moment of pride and validation. The stories of Deathworlders had always carried a sense of mythos, but now there was tangible proof of what humans could achieve on the galactic stage. Yet the response was measured, recognizing that while the duel was a victory, it was only the beginning of a much larger journey. Humanity's place among the stars was still being defined, and the challenges ahead would require more than just individual feats of strength or skill. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects of the duel continued to unfold. Some species began reaching out to Earth with offers of collaboration, intrigued by the possibilities of working alongside such a unique and adaptable people. Others withdrew slightly, wary of what humanity's potential might mean for the balance of power in the galaxy. The Peacekeepers, for their part, initiated a series of studies to better understand humanity's capabilities, framing it as an effort to foster greater interspecies cooperation. For Rain, the experience marked a turning point. He returned to Earth with a clearer sense of his mission and a deeper appreciation for the responsibility that came with representing humanity. The duel had been a test, not just of his abilities but of humanity's readiness to engage with the galaxy on equal terms. It was a test he had passed, but it was also a reminder that the road ahead would be anything but simple. The galaxy, vast and full of potential, now saw humanity in a new light. The duel had been more than a competition, it had been a revelation. And as the stars continued to turn, the question lingered in the minds of many: what role would the Deathworlders play in the future of the cosmos? For the first time, the answer seemed as limitless as the universe itself.